Hey guys, John here. I hope you're all doing well. In today's video, we're going to take a look at something pretty cool and interesting. Headphones from Beyerdynamic. This is the 700 or the DT 700 Pro X, and this is the DT 900 Pro X. These are open back, and these are closed back headphones, and they are awesome. And what really takes these to the next level is the Beyerdynamic Headphone Lab plugin, which is free, and it has some really cool features which we'll look at later in this video. But yeah, these are awesome, and I'm going to talk about these today. Now, these headphones were sent to me by the kind folks at Beyerdynamic who are also sponsoring this video. Many thanks to them. But I have been using Beyerdynamic headphones for many years. This is my trusty DT 770 Pro pair, the 80 ohm variant. This is always on my desk, so whenever I need to try something on headphones or listen to a mix or master on headphones, these are the ones I grab. They look great, they feel really comfortable on the head, and they sound great too. Not entirely flat, which is where the Headphone Lab plugin comes in, but they do sound great. They have a very nice and extended low end, and they go all the way up top, so there's, a lot of clarity in there as well. And you can do some great mixes on these, do some tracking, mastering, you name it. And yeah, I've loved using these for years. Even though I'm primarily a studio monitor user, whenever I need to use headphones, these are the ones I grab. Now again, these aren't entirely flat. I can't really think of a headphone pair that is completely flat, but that's where the Headphone Lab comes in, which we'll get to in a minute. And that's a really interesting feature. So, these are the new ones. They've gotten quite a revamp. So this is the new 700 Pro X, and this is my old one. So as you can see, they look quite different. These definitely look more modern, right? And again, this is the 700 Pro X closed back, and this is the 900 Pro X open back. So they have a bit of a different response and sound to them. And I've been comparing the two, and I found that I'm actually preferring the open back. The closed back 700 sounds great, nothing wrong with it, it's what I'm used to, but I've never tried open back headphones myself, and I was really pleasantly surprised at how open and natural these sound. So that's kind of cool how I was able to compare open back to closed back. I definitely get a feeling that with the open back headphones it's a bit more airy, and the bass response has more room to breathe, whereas the bass response on the closed back sounds a little bit more congested. And everything sounds a bit more as if it's in your head rather than you sort of listening in a room, if that makes sense. So with, closed back headphones, of course, people around you aren't going to notice so much that you're working on headphones. And you're not going to get distracted by noises in the environment as much, probably. But it does sound a little bit more as if it's in your head. And with these, it sounds so airy and open. And I especially love how open and airy the top end is. So again, it just sounds as if there's more room to breathe for the music, which is a lovely experience, to be honest. I find these quite comfortable with the pads on your head. I like how they look, I like how they sound, and I like how they feel on my head. Now, there are a couple of cool new features as well. One of them being that the cable that you get, or two cables in fact, you get two lengths. I think you get a 3 meter one and a 1.5 meter one. You can detach the cable. So you can take this off. If your cable breaks, you can just replace the cable yourself. And voila, it's very easy. So either you have a shorter cable or a slightly longer one, and you can pick which one you're going to use. Now, in the past, I've had to change a cable for the old ones, not this pair, but from another pair, by soldering and everything, and that was quite a task. Not super difficult, but I don't solder quite often. But that was a bit of a finicky task, and this makes all of that so much easier. So that is great. And of course, these headphones also come, again, with the additional cable. This is the 3 meter cable, if I'm not mistaken. In any case, it's longer than the one that I'm using right now, which I believe is 1.5 meters long. And you also get a wonderful pouch. So it's like a great overall package that you get with these headphones. Yeah, and the overall listening experience in general, without taking into consideration the Headphone Lab app, is just very pleasant. They sound great, they sound extended, they sound big, they sound wide. And just as with my old pair, I really enjoy listening to music on them. I enjoy tracking music with them, and I enjoy mixing and mastering my music with them. Now let's take a very quick look at the prices of these at Thomann right now. So this is the price of the DT 900 Pro X. The open ones, if you will, they are 239 euros, which is a great price. And of course, please use my affiliate link if you decide to pick one of these up. And that exact same price goes for the 700 Pro X. All right, so 239 euros, which is a great price. And you get the free plugin with that, so that's wonderful. Now let's take a very quick look at the website and let's do the 900 Pro X headphones, just real quick. So here you can see the headphones. Now it says wide range of applications on all devices thanks to stellar 0.45 driver. I'm not very technical, I'm not an expert at that stuff, but that's the speaker or the driver in the headphones with an impedance of 48 ohms. Superb wearing comfort. Yes, they do feel very good on the head. They're robust, made in Germany, etc. Right? Over here you can see how they look on the inside. Of course, the detachable cable, which is awesome. The plugin, which we'll get to in a minute. And also the accessories. Oh, these are the different models. The X models, and here's what you get in the box. Now, of course, what you can do, as always, this is the large jack. You can also take that off. And then you have a small jack, right? So that's always default from the factory. That is nice. Now, the thing that I'm the most excited about when it comes to these headphones is the free Headphone Lab plugin by Beyerdynamic, which you can use with these new Pro X headphones, but also with your older Beyerdynamic headphones. And this plugin has some really neat features. We have headphone calibration, which is wonderful, which means that you can make the sound of your headphones flat, completely flat. We have this loudspeaker emulation, which I'll talk about in a second. We also have this room emulation going on. And those features are quite powerful. And let me explain why. Listening to music and mixing music on headphones isn't really a natural experience in comparison to listening to audio through speakers or studio monitors. When you're listening to studio monitors, the sound from both speakers comes into both your ears, right? So the sound of the left speaker is going to come into your left ear first, and then with a very slight delay, it's going to come into your right ear as well. But there's basically crosstalk going on, okay? Now, the room also has an impact on the sound. With the reflections, you know, there isn't a room that is perfectly flat, if you will. There's always going to be a little bit of coloration and reflections in the room. And those reflections are coming into your ears as well. Now, when you're listening on headphones, not only are normal headphones not flat, which means that the frequency response isn't going to be very true and honest, it's also much more direct. And the sound from your right ear cup or speaker is only going to go into your right ear. And the sound of your left speaker or phone is only going to come into your left ear. So there's no crosstalk and no room ambience as well. So it's not really a natural way of listening to mixes in comparison to speakers. Now, this plugin aims to take care of that. Now, let's talk about the factory calibration for a sec. If you buy these new Pro X headphones, you can enter your serial number, which I've done here. That means that they've basically measured these headphones in the factory. So each headphone has been measured so that they can very precisely correct the frequency response of each individual pair of headphones, which is great. And I can tell you, it really works. When you enable the headphone calibration, the sound is much more flat and even. Look, if I turn the factory calibration off for these headphones, the 900 Pro X's, you can see that the normal ones have a little bit of roll off here, and a bump here, and then a dip here, and a boost here. And while that can sound great, it's not flat and it's not really natural. Now, as you can see, if we turn on the calibration, the response is extremely flat and honest, which is better for making mixing decisions or, you know, for stuff like creating your guitar tones, or if you want to listen to another mix for a reference, etc. Your mixes aren't going to get skewed by the off frequency response of your headphones or your room. It's going to be entirely flat. Same thing for the 700 Pro X's, which I've also entered the serial number of. So you enter your serial number, and then that factory correction data gets entered into the app. As you can see, same thing, very flat. Now these have a different frequency response. As you can see, the lows are bumped up a bit, as well as the low mids here. And there's a dip here, and then a bump in the mids, another dip, and a boost. So these sound quite crispy and thick in the low end and a little bit scooped in some of the mid-frequency areas. And this corrects all of that with the factory calibration with great accuracy. Now, if you don't own the Pro X headphones, you can even use your old ones. Let me show you. So I've also entered this option, the 770 Pro 80 ohm. Now what they've done basically, they have their reference pair of these headphones in the factory, and they measured those, and then you can use the calibration data for those headphones for your own pair. It's not going to be as precise and as accurate as the frequency calibration with the ones that were actually measured in the factory, but it's still going to be much more flat than just listening to these headphones by default without the calibration. So that is nice, and you can see here there's a bit, of deviation probably going on from pair to pair, but still, it's a great feature for people who already own the Beyerdynamic headphones and they want to use this free plugin. So that is the calibration, and I can tell you it works really well, and I really like listening to mixes flat. I think it's such a better experience. Even my studio monitors, I have like room calibration going on them, because I just prefer working on flat speakers. It's much better for making mixing decisions, basically. So that is that, and that is a wonderful feature. Now, of course, we also have the loudspeaker emulation, which, as I talked about, emulates the sound of speakers in a room. Now, these aren't going to be, speaker into one ear, the other speaker into the other ear. No, there's going to be crosstalk and everything. You can even choose the loudspeaker angle. So a little bit wider. I think with 60 is just fine for me, because it's comparable to how I have my speaker set up, but you can change all of that and you can turn it off so that it's, just as with standard headphones, the right speaker goes into the right ear and the left speaker goes into the left ear. If you prefer that, if you're so used to working on headphones, but you still want to use the flat calibrated response, then you can just use the factory calibration and turn the speaker emulation off. But if you want this to sound as if you're mixing in an actual room with speakers in front of you, this is a very useful feature. Especially if you're like traveling or something and you don't have access to a good studio room with good speakers, you can emulate that with this feature. And yeah, it really changes the sound in a way that makes it sound as if you're indeed listening to speakers in a room, but then, very nicely calibrated speakers with a very flat frequency response. That is nice. Now you can even choose how wet the ambience of the room is. So if you put this to dry, it's going to be very dry, much like the actual response of headphones because they're like on your head, if you know what I mean, or very wet. So it sounds a bit more roomy like that, if that's what you prefer. Or if you're used to working in a room that's a bit more ambient, rather than being very dry and direct. We have this safe mode control that just prevents clipping and everything. And again, the factory calibration, okay? Now, there are a bunch of headphones, of course, that you can add. These are the ones in here. So if you have these, you can add these. There aren't any headphones in here from other brands. Maybe they'll add that in the future. I don't know. Of course, you can bypass the plugin, and over here you can measure the size of your head or the distance from your ears, and that's going to give you even greater accuracy. It's set to the default settings. For me, it seems to work just fine, but you can actually measure your head and your ears so that the frequency response is even more realistic based on the size of your head. Okay. So yeah, that is this plugin, and I really recommend trying this out if you have Beyerdynamic headphones. If you're in the market for some new headphones, definitely check out the new Pro X models. They are very comfortable and they sound great, and of course they come with the factory calibration and the measurements and everything. So It's a great experience to, work on these for either tracking, playing, listening to music, mixing, especially mixing and mastering, because the flat frequency response is quite wonderful for making mixing decisions. One thing that I asked them about is if there will be a system-wide standalone application. Because it's not there right now, or as of right now, but they did say that they're working on that and that they want to add that later this year. So that is cool. That's much more convenient for, listening to stuff on YouTube, for example, or just audio files that you have on your computer, etc. So yeah, that's my video. I'm sorry that I couldn't really let you guys hear how this sounds, but it doesn't really make sense to let you hear how it sounds because it's going to be so different if you're not listening on these actual headphones. I already was very pleased with my old 770 Pro X 80 ohm headphones, but these, are more comfortable in my opinion, and the Headphone Lab calibration takes it to the next level, which is just awesome for, making mixing and mastering decisions. So I love that so much. And I think that I can trust my headphones more now for making mixing decisions. And I love the 900 Pro X open backs, especially. They sound really wonderful and open and detailed up top. The low end has more breathing room, or so it seems. So I really like these a lot. And again, if you're interested, please check out my affiliate link for Thomann or other affiliate links to purchase these, as that really helps out the channel. I'd really appreciate it. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below as well, because I'd love to know. And of course, you can also follow Sonic Drive Studio on Facebook and Instagram. And thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope to see you soon. Cheers.